Buddy Holly's name remains synonymous with the early days of rock and country music, a trailblazer whose innovative style redefined the sound of the 1950s. Known for iconic hits like That'll Be the Day and Peggy Sue, Holly's impact on music far outlasted his short career, inspiring generations of artists. Yet, his life was tragically cut short on February 3, 1959, in a plane crash that also claimed the lives of Ritchie Valens and J.P., the Big Bopper, Richardson. That day, forever memorialized as the day the music died, marked the end of an era but left behind a legacy that continues to resonate. Among those who were close to Holly was a young Waylon Jennings, an up-and-coming musician who would later become a country legend himself. The two shared a special bond, with Jennings serving as Holly's bassist during the ill-fated Winter Dance Party tour. But that bond would soon be shadowed by tragedy, casting a long-lasting impact on Jennings' life and career. In a recently resurfaced interview, Waylon Jennings made remarks that have reignited interest in the circumstances surrounding the crash. His comments hint at a potential twist, raising questions about Jennings' role in the final moments before the crash. Could there be more to the story of that fateful flight? What were the events that unfolded in those final days, and how did they shape the destinies of those left behind? Join us as we dive into the intertwined stories of Buddy Holly and Waylon Jennings, exploring the rise of these musical icons, the heartbreaking events of the day the music died, and the lasting reverberations in their legacies. Uncover the truth behind the rumors, and examine the impact of a friendship marked by music, loss, and a mystery that refuses to fade. Buddy Holly was born Charles Hardin Holly on September 7, 1936, in Lubbock, Texas. From a young age, music flowed through Holly's life. His family home was filled with gospel, country, and rhythm and blues. These influences were not just background noise, they were inspiration. Buddy learned to play guitar as a child, and by his teenage years, his passion for music had evolved into a calling. With his brother, he performed at local events, honing his ability to connect with audiences and refining a style that was rapidly becoming unique. In 1956, Holly formed the Crickets, marking a turning point in his career and in the future of rock music. The group, comprising Jerry Allison on drums, Joe B. Malden on bass, and Nicky Sullivan on rhythm guitar, brought a fresh, innovative approach to rock and roll. Their sound, a blend of catchy melodies and relatable lyrics, drew fans in quickly. Holly's distinctive hiccup-styled singing and upbeat rhythms, combined with Allison's dynamic drumming, became hallmarks of the band's sound. Their breakout single, That'll Be the Day, captured audiences nationwide and marked Holly as a pioneer in rock music, blending catchy hooks with honest storytelling in a way that resonated widely. Unlike many artists of his time, Buddy Holly experimented with studio techniques and instrument layering to produce a sound that stood apart. Using multi-track recording, he brought a full, rich sound to his recordings, pushing boundaries that would inspire future musicians. Hits like Peggy Sue and Every Day quickly climbed the charts, bringing Holly to the forefront of the music scene. It was his bold approach and creative genius that helped define the rock genre. His influence would soon ripple beyond his own work. Artists such as Bob Dylan, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones cited him as a major influence. By 1958, Buddy Holly's fame had soared, and he was eager to bring his music to a broader audience. He embarked on the Winter Dance Party tour in early 1959, a grueling journey that would take him across the Midwest. But the tour was challenging from the start. Bitter cold, long bus rides, and frequent breakdowns plagued the musicians, draining their energy and testing their endurance. Holly, however, pressed on, driven by his commitment to his music and his fans. During this time, Holly's path crossed with a young Waylon Jennings. The two shared an instant camaraderie, with Holly recognizing Jennings' potential and inviting him to join the tour as his bassist. Their friendship was rooted in mutual respect and a shared love of music, offering a support system amid the grueling tour schedule. As the Winter Dance Party tour rolled on, Holly's optimism remained steadfast. Though signs of strain were beginning to show, little did anyone know that tragedy was just around the corner. As we explore further, we'll uncover how the events of the tour and the deepening bond between Holly and Jennings would culminate in a night that forever changed music history. Waylon Jennings was born on June 15, 1937, in Littlefield, Texas, a small town just miles from Buddy Holly's hometown of Lubbock. Like Holly, Jennings discovered his passion for music at an early age. Growing up, Jennings was heavily influenced by country legends like Hank Williams, as well as the energetic sounds of early rock and roll. He quickly developed a natural talent for playing guitar and singing, captivating local audiences with his rich voice and charismatic presence. By his teenage years, Jennings had already begun pursuing his music career in earnest. He formed a band, the Texas Longhorns, and played regularly at local bars, honky-tonks, and radio stations. His voice had a grit that conveyed raw emotion, a quality that soon earned him a following in Texas. His drive to create music set him apart, and it wasn't long before he attracted the attention of influential figures in the industry. Jennings's journey was just beginning, but he was already demonstrating the talent and resilience that would later define his legacy. In 1958, Waylon Jennings' life changed dramatically when he met Buddy Holly. Holly, who had become a major figure in rock and roll by then, was drawn to Jennings' natural talent and offered him an incredible opportunity, a spot playing bass in his band for the upcoming Winter Dance Party tour. It was a defining moment for Jennings, and he eagerly accepted, thrilled to work with a musician of Holly's caliber. The two quickly formed a friendship based on mutual respect, ambition, and a shared understanding of the struggles and joys of a career in music. Jennings admired Holly's fearless creativity, and Holly, in turn, saw a fire in Jennings that reminded him of his own relentless drive. As the Winter Dance Party tour began in early 1959, Jennings found himself facing the challenges of life on the road. The tour was demanding, with the artist performing almost every night in cities across the Midwest. Adding to the strain were harsh winter conditions and a poorly maintained tour bus that often broke down, leaving the musicians shivering in sub-zero temperatures. Despite the physical hardships, Jennings took every performance as an opportunity to learn from Holly, soaking in the experience of being on stage with a rock and roll icon. However, as the tour progressed, the toll of constant travel began to wear on the artists, and tensions ran high. Fatigue, frustration, and the endless cold created an atmosphere of exhaustion. Holly, seeking a reprieve from the bus's brutal conditions, decided to charter a private plane to reach the next destination in comfort. In an unexpected twist of fate, Jennings was initially supposed to be on that flight. At the last minute, he gave up his seat to J.P. The Big Bopper, Richardson, who was struggling with the flu and asked Jennings for the spot. This decision would haunt Jennings for the rest of his life, especially after learning of the crash that took Holly, Valens, and Richardson. In the aftermath, Jennings grappled with survivor's guilt, a burden that cast a long shadow over his career. In later years, he spoke of the deep loss he felt and the sense of fate that seemed to guide his life from that tragic moment onward. February 3, 1959, was a day that began with hope and excitement for Buddy Holly and his fellow musicians. Exhausted from a grueling Winter Dance Party tour, Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper, Richardson were desperate to escape the frigid bus that had been their primary mode of transportation through harsh Midwestern winter storms. When they reached Clear Lake, Iowa, after another long night, Holly decided to charter a private plane to ensure they reached their next performance in Moorhead, Minnesota, with enough time to rest. That decision, however, was not without complications. The weather was far from ideal, with a heavy snowfall and strong winds blanketing the small Clear Lake airstrip. Still, Holly, eager to get a reprieve from the punishing tour conditions, pushed forward with the charter. Roger Peterson, the 21-year-old pilot of the Beechcraft Bonanza, was assigned to fly the three musicians. Although Peterson was experienced, he lacked proper training in navigating solely by instruments, a skill crucial for safely navigating flights in poor visibility conditions like those he would face that night. Tensions ran high as the musicians scrambled for seats on the small plane. Waylon Jennings, Buddy Holly's bassist on the tour, was originally set to board the aircraft. However, in a last-minute decision, he gave his seat to the Big Bopper, who was suffering from a cold and struggling with the harsh bus conditions. Ritchie Valens, determined to avoid another night on the bus, won his spot on the plane through a coin toss with guitarist Tommy Alsop, sealing his fate in one of rock and roll's most legendary yet tragic moments. Around 1:00 a.m., Peterson guided the plane down the icy runway, its lights disappearing into the stormy Iowa night. Within minutes, however, tragedy struck. The Bonanza encountered heavy snow and near-zero visibility as it climbed. Unable to navigate in the challenging conditions, Peterson lost control, and the plane plummeted into a cornfield just miles from the airstrip. The crash killed everyone on board instantly, marking a heartbreaking end for 3 rising stars. News of the tragedy spread quickly, and the music world was shaken. Holly, Valens, and Richardson had already carved a profound impact on rock and roll, and their sudden deaths left an indelible void. The loss was particularly devastating for those close to Holly, including Waylon Jennings, who was overcome with survivor's guilt. In a moment that haunted him for years, Jennings recalled his last conversation with Holly before the plane departed. When Holly joked, "I hope your bus freezes up," Jennings replied, "I hope your plane crashes." The remark, though made in jest, would follow Jennings throughout his life, a reminder of the eerie twist of fate that had spared him. In the days following the crash, the public mourned the loss, and tributes poured in for Holly, Valens, and Richardson. The tragedy would come to be known as the day the music died, symbolizing not only the loss of 3 talented musicians, but also a moment that forever changed the landscape of rock and roll. For Jennings and others who knew the victims, the weight of that night lingered, casting a shadow over an entire generation of music. Decades after the tragic crash that claimed the lives of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper, Richardson, an interview with Waylon Jennings emerged, reigniting a wave of speculation about that fateful night. The interview revealed Jennings' struggle with intense survivor's guilt, a burden he carried privately for years. Although Jennings had become a country music icon in his own right, the memory of Holly's death haunted him. This resurfaced interview offered fans a rare glimpse into the inner turmoil he faced, grief and guilt interwoven with his identity. In the interview, Jennings opened up about the final moments he shared with Holly before the plane took off. The two had exchanged teasing remarks about their respective journeys. Holly jokingly wished Jennings would suffer in the frigid bus, and Jennings, without a hint of seriousness, replied, "I hope your plane crashes." He later admitted that those words haunted him, knowing that this exchange was his last memory of Holly. Jennings reflected on how that simple remark weighed on him, becoming a painful reminder of how fragile life truly is. But it wasn't only the guilt from that comment that tormented Jennings. Some snippets from the interview alluded to the challenges they faced on tour, the unending cold, long hours, and constant discomfort. These conditions, he suggested, had contributed to Holly's desperate decision to charter a plane. Jennings' words painted a vivid picture of the difficulties they all endured, illustrating how close-knit the group had become in such adverse circumstances. Holly, Jennings, and the others shared a camaraderie forged through the hardships of life on the road, making the tragedy even more painful to bear. The interview also fueled wild speculation about Jennings' possible role in the crash. Some took his words out of context, suggesting that his offhand comment meant he felt responsible for the crash, a misinterpretation that troubled Jennings deeply. He'd already endured years of public scrutiny and internal guilt, and these rumors only amplified the emotional toll he carried. Ultimately, Jennings expressed his sorrow and respect for his friend in the interview, describing Holly as a pioneering talent who had shaped him both personally and musically. Waylon's revelations highlighted a man who, despite his fame, was still haunted by that dark night. This interview reminded fans of the deep, often unseen scars that tragic events can leave behind, and how survivors' guilt, compounded by years of speculation, had silently affected Jennings' life and legacy. The crash that claimed the lives of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper, Richardson sparked an enduring wave of rumors and conspiracy theories. As fans struggled to accept the sudden loss of these rising stars, questions arose, casting shadows over the official explanation of the crash. Waylon Jennings, who narrowly escaped the tragic flight, found himself at the center of swirling speculation, adding a layer of intrigue and mystery to an already tragic tale. One of the most persistent theories emerged after Jennings' resurfaced interview, where he shared the haunting details of his last exchange with Holly. Jennings' offhand comment, "I hope your plane crashes," became a focus of public scrutiny, with some speculating that he somehow felt responsible for the crash. This interpretation, though far-fetched, fed into a larger narrative that Jennings' presence on the tour and his close bond with Holly could have played a role. While it's clear that Jennings was devastated by the loss, and his remark was never meant to be taken literally, the media seized upon his words, fueling sensational headlines that kept these theories alive. Another theory suggested that mechanical issues or pilot error contributed to the crash. Reports indicate that the pilot, Roger Peterson, was not certified to fly by instrument alone, which could have been disastrous given the poor visibility that night. Furthermore, it was rumored that Peterson was under significant pressure to complete the flight, despite the severe weather conditions. These factors led some to wonder whether negligence or misjudgment, rather than fate, was responsible for the tragedy. This theory gained traction over the years, reinforcing the public's desire for a concrete explanation behind the loss of such beloved figures. Among the more extreme theories was the notion that the crash was an act of sabotage or even a targeted attack. Some speculated that Buddy Holly, who was quickly gaining fame and power in the music industry, might have had enemies. Holly had recently taken control over his career, choosing to split from his manager and make independent decisions, something that, in the cutthroat world of music, was almost unheard of for a young artist. These speculations were largely unfounded, yet they fueled a fascination with the idea of an artist's success being envied or sabotaged. Despite these wild theories, no evidence emerged to support any claims beyond the official investigation, which concluded that the crash was a tragic accident resulting from poor weather conditions and pilot error. Yet the persistence of these theories illustrates the impact of Holly, Valens, and Richardson on the cultural landscape. Fans struggled to reconcile the loss, and conspiracy theories became a way for some to process the pain, creating narratives that, however implausible, allowed them to make sense of the tragedy. Waylon Jennings, who went on to become a country legend in his own right, remained haunted by the event throughout his life. The theories and rumors surrounding the crash often pained him, but he also understood their place in the mythos surrounding the day the music died. These theories, while unproven, serve as a reminder of the depth of grief felt for Holly, Valens, and Richardson, a grief that transcended facts and became enshrined in the mystery and lore of rock and roll history. The crash that claimed the lives of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper. Richardson left an indelible mark on the music industry and continues to resonate as a defining moment in rock history. Dubbed the Day the Music Died, February 3, 1959, became a somber milestone that underscored the fragility of life and the unpredictable nature of fame. For fans and fellow musicians alike, the loss highlighted the reality that even the brightest stars can be extinguished in an instant, transforming the trio into enduring symbols of unfulfilled potential and raw talent taken too soon. Buddy Holly's legacy, in particular, continued to inspire and shape music for generations. His pioneering approach to songwriting and his willingness to experiment with new sounds left an imprint on artists across genres, including the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and the Rolling Stones. Holly's innovative use of rhythm, guitar techniques, and multi-track recording elevated rock and roll, setting a standard that many musicians would emulate. His timeless songs, like That'll Be the Day and Peggy Sue, continue to capture the spirit of youth, love, and rebellion, resonating as deeply today as they did in the 1950s. For Waylon Jennings, the tragedy served as a profound life-altering event. The crash forced him to confront both survivor's guilt and the fleeting nature of life, though he eventually went on to have a highly successful career, pioneering the outlaw country movement alongside figures like Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash. Jennings often expressed a lingering sense of loss and what-if reflections about that fateful night. His friendship with Holly remained a cherished memory, and Jennings frequently honored Holly's legacy through his music and public tributes, ensuring his friend's influence lived on even after his death. Beyond the impact on individual artists, the crash ignited a wider awareness of the risks associated with the demanding schedules and travel requirements of touring musicians. In response, artists and industry professionals began calling for better safety standards and travel arrangements, recognizing the need to protect performers in an industry where schedules and deadlines often trump personal safety. The tragedy served as a reminder of the pressures musicians face, sparking conversations about artist welfare that are still relevant today. The public fascination with the crash and the artists involved has not waned, and memorials, tribute concerts, and documentaries have kept their memories alive for fans worldwide. Museums and monuments dedicated to Holly, Valens, and Richardson stand as testaments to their enduring legacy, drawing visitors who wish to pay homage to the lives and music that inspired countless others. In the end, the legacy of Buddy Holly and his peers is far more than a tragic story. It's a reminder of music's ability to transcend boundaries, connect people, and leave a lasting impact. The influence of these artists on rock and country music endures, embodying the beauty and heartbreak of lives cut short, but whose echoes still resound in every guitar chord, lyric, and melody they left behind. The tragic crash on February 3, 1959, known as the day the music died, marked an irreplaceable loss for music as Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper, Richardson were taken far too soon. Holly's groundbreaking work in rock and roll, with songs like That'll Be the Day and Peggy Sue, continues to influence generations, establishing him as a foundational figure in modern music. Holly's innovative style, mixing rock, country, and rhythm, inspired countless artists, including the Beatles, to experiment and push the boundaries of sound. His brief yet impactful career laid the groundwork for the evolution of rock, all while embodying an authenticity that resonated with audiences across the world. For Waylon Jennings, who survived that fateful night, Holly's legacy was a bittersweet reminder of the fragility of life and the depth of friendship. Jennings channeled this experience into his music, honoring the legacy of a friend and mentor. Today, Buddy Holly's story serves as a powerful reminder of the enduring influence of art, proving that though lives may be short, music has the power to inspire, heal, and connect generations far beyond a single lifetime.